Yeah. Okay. Great. Okay, let's make a start. I'm really conscious of everybody giving up their evening, and like Angela said, we got till 8:30, so just to make the most of our time together. So a really warm welcome to everybody. My name is Pratima Detani. I head up Support Northamptonshire, through which we're running a project, a social action project called Community Watch, funded primarily by the Police Commissioner. And part of that was to deliver days of action in Wellingborough around crime and community safety. Given COVID and lockdown, we've had to re-profile what we do, and we wanted to address current issues and important work, really. And Black Lives Matter is one of those really important areas of work we need to look at. So just to say thank you to Trey, who's going to chair this event, and Will is also one of our speakers. Charlene, who's a trustee of the NREC, will also then take part in this latter bit of the kind of project program, and Angela as well. So if I just take you through, I'll just describe what Community Watch does kind of wider and the context of this, and just some of the outcomes we might be looking for today. So Community Watch is focused on kind of priority areas and communities of interest. We're doing some work with Made with Many in priority areas of Hemingwell, Queensway, Croyland, and forgotten one. Help.
Kingsway.
And Victoria Ward.
Okay.
How can I forget Victoria Ward? So series of different things going on, and kind of, like I say, we had to reschedule what we do. But the priority wards are getting kind of packs at home, and they're doing a kind of a competition about what it feels like to remain safe in the communities. And that work has just commenced. So, and people are getting individual activity packs at home delivered by Made with Many. So that's really good work. We ran a hate crimes event the other week as part of this program as well, which was really well attended. And we're supporting the work around safer streets in the Victoria Ward as well, which is making the whole area in Victoria Ward and Icebrook Ward safer from allegating point of view and target hardening, etc. So lots of good work going on. But importantly, today we wanted to focus on Black Lives Matters, and I'll kind of hand over to Trey really, because he's going to kind of set the context for this. And just to say a kind of warm welcome, and once Trey and Will have kind of spoken, we're then going to focus on the 9-point plan that the NREC have issued, and what we'd like to do is to work with you to look at the priorities we have for Wellingborough in addressing that 9-point plan. So Trey, I'll hand over to you.
Oh, thank you. When Angela asked me to chair this, I said no about 3 times. So basically, Angela is very persuasive. So I'm here now, basically, just to give you a context behind the Black Lives Matter movement as I see it. So in May 2020, an African American man was murdered by a Minneapolis police officer called Derek Chauvin. His name was George Floyd. Since then, the biggest anti-Black racism movement has taken place in human history. We saw protests across the US and in Britain too, France, the Netherlands, Canada, and more. Even seemingly stereotypically English white places like the Forest of Dean had protests. So you could say the murder of George Floyd hit a note. But it would be naive of us to pretend that this started with George Floyd, because he wasn't the first Black person to be killed by a police officer in America. And Black Lives Matter didn't start with him. This concept of Black death at the hands of the police goes back decades, but Black Lives Matter was started in 2012 by 3 Black women, Alicia Garza, Opal Tometi, and Patrice collars in the US in response to the murder of Trayvon Martin by George Zimmerman, another police officer. Zimmerman claimed self-defense under the Stand Your Ground law in Florida, and then he was acquitted. And thus Black Lives Matter was born. Since then, Black Lives Matter has come out for umpteen black murder victims that have lost their lives at the hands of US law enforcement. And the concept of American police was also something that came out of white supremacist ideology, enforced by the slave-owning class to catch runaway slaves. These men were called patrollers, designed to control slave labor. One of the first colonies in America, Jamestown in Virginia, received its first batch of slaves or enslaved in 1619. By the 1700s, a method of policing was on its way to being developed, an imitation of the policing that allowed white police officers to kneel on a black man's neck, a style of law enforcement that today many have called institutionally racist. Certain individuals with power granted the power to abuse those under their authority without any repercussions, which is why you will rarely ever see, even when we know a police officer has killed someone in the US or the UK, rarely police are ever sentenced or arrested for their crimes. This was early policing in what we now call the US. In the South, its origins are firmly planted in the southern slave economy and the racist social order that invented whiteness in the US, what we now know, at least in part, as white privilege. That whites, no matter what their class, could not be held in slavery. Black people, on the other hand, could be enslaved by anybody. Whites, free blacks, and people that were multiracial or mixed race. And what allowed this police state to flourish was the economic system behind it. Systems of surveillance, policing by brute force and intimidation. Thus, there were slave patrols, predominantly white men on horseback who rode at night in their assigned area, what they called the beat. That term originated in slavery, in a way of hunting runaway slaves and disrupting unsanctioned gatherings, especially those that looked to incite mutiny. This is a brief history of what allowed what happened to George Floyd to happen. But this is not just a US problem, it's a global problem, including in Europe, Western Europe, New Zealand, Brazil, and here in Britain, where Black people are disproportionately stopped and searched and tased by police. Black youths make up nearly 28% of inmates in youth prisons, and Black people are 13% of the prison population more generally, in contrast to only 3% of the general UK population. The racism that is happening at the hands of police is also happening across society, in education with awarding gaps and the school to prison pipeline. What is happening to Black people that work in government? What about in journalism? One of the most elitist professions still, institutions like the BBC, where Professor David Olusoga in his McTaggart lecture claimed that diversity in their terms was a fair split between applicants from both Oxford and Cambridge universities. What is happening in boardrooms, the microaggressions and the dripping tap of racial hatred. Black Lives Matter stopped being about policing a long time ago. Derek Chauvin murdering George Floyd started a fire in Britain that I did not expect to see this side of 40 years old, pertinently on the street level, taking some ownership of our society, and it's only gone from strength to strength since. In a land that is still grappling, even today, somewhat between woke and Tory, I've seen some institutions giving lip service, whilst others are really looking into their roots. Street demonstrations have spilled into our institutions, and senior leadership teams may be starting to see that something isn't right here, and they can do better. That violence is more than a police officer holding a gun to your head. The riots, the protests, the marches, these are all acts blessed by history. Like, what was the Haitian Revolution but a reaction to state violence, state colonial violence? What we have to ask ourselves is, when social violence erupts, what happened before that made people resort to violence? That Black Lives Matter aside, no strides for people's rights came from sitting idly. Women's rights in the pallor of the suffragette movement and the suffragist movements, hunger strikes and marches alongside activists like Sylvia Pankhurst. Stonewall was a riot. Pride was originally a protest What about the poll tax riots amidst the Thatcher era? How violence presents itself is another matter. And violence is beyond the physical. Is poverty, not violence? And what about denying healthcare and the climate crisis? And this violence we are seeing is in response to violence, that peacetime is a luxury afforded to certain individuals. But when we explore more definitions of what violence is beyond the physical, it is even more evident when we talk about Black lives. If there are protests, rebellions, and riots, you have to ask yourself about the so-called times of peace that came before. That Black people are living in a society that, in fear of what will happen to George Floyd, could quite easily happen to them. The violence is part of US culture. It is as American as cherry pie, as Gary Young said in his video, A Question of Violence. Violence is also part of British culture. But what we define as violence is up for discussion, but our institutions act violently and people will respond in kind. We have to recall how both the enslaved and the abolitionists found the energy to push Britain to own its problem of slavery. In 2020, we still live in the aftermath of colonialism because colonialism won the war on race. But this year has been a turbulent year in both society and politics, with the release of the Windrush Lessons Learned report into the Windrush scandal, with the COVID report. It has been a year in which young people have pushed for generational change, holding their elders to account, young people making demands on issues that matter to them. But for my generation, and I can only speak from what I've seen in talking to students and lecturing students and standing alongside them, is that we are actually disgusted by racism. It is very much from the generations that came prior. Northampton's Black Lives Matter protest at the beginning of July was led by the community, young people, both Black and white, refugees, immigrants, and people that were working class and middle class. There was diversity. A generation in Northamptonshire that do not want to live in a society disfigured by inequality and are very willing to disown their parents if need be on these issues of inequality. Inequalities that some, not all of their parents and grandparents continue to reinforce. But Black Lives Matter is about anti-Black discrimination. But to me, it speaks to wider intersections in society. When I say intersectionality, I mean the term coined by Kimberly Crenshaw nearly 30 years ago. What about the experience of Black women with misogynoir? What about Black people that are gay, bi, trans, or non-binary, and the added discrimination that comes with being both Black and all those things as well? What about Black people that are on the autism spectrum or special educational needs, like I was? Black people that have disabilities. Black Lives Matter speaks to a diversity of Black lives, and race is not a straight line. But my generation are leading a radical shift in thinking, and for us, these principles of equality and equity are sacred. But what stands in front of that are the gatekeepers and the ivory towers of the establishment, including local authority bodies and academia, gatekeeping knowledge and power. And in the end, what this generation, my generation in this country, show is a genuine will to share power and stories, something our elders still sometimes struggle to understand and deal with. And I will end in saying that in 1857, the slavery abolitionist Frederick Douglass said, "Power concedes nothing without a demand, and it never has, and it never will." The key word there is demand. And on that note, I will invite Will Reid to speak. He was part of the promotion of Northampton and the Wellingborough protest. So, Will Reid.
Thank you very much, Trey. I appreciate you. Thank you very much. A lot of eloquent words and factual information that people may not have known that you've just provided. So thank you for that. I appreciate you. Yeah, so hi everybody that's in here. I'm Will. I was a part of the protests for Northampton and Wellingborough, both of the Northampton protests and the one in Wellingborough. I got invited to speak at the Ketchum one, but due to obviously COVID and work and things, I couldn't kind of make that one. And Jordan asked me to speak, and I said yes. Unlike Trey, I kind of just dove in head first, like, yeah, I'll speak. And then afterwards, I was like, but what am I going to really say? So I did have a presentation that for some reason isn't actually opening up. I've been sitting here for the last couple of minutes trying to open it, but it won't. But it's fine. It's just kind of pretty pictures and things for people to look at. It's nothing special. It's just of the protests. There's no actual information on there. What I'll say and what I'll say to you guys is this. Going off the back of some of the things that Trey said, it was refreshing because I didn't think there was going to be that many people that turned up to either of the protests. I didn't think that people cared enough. When I saw that NREC had put together of the initial protest in Northampton, I was like, oh, okay, let me go and see who's really out here standing up for what they believe in and not just talking on social media. And when I got there, there was like 200, 300, 400 people there. And I was like, whoa. Then I went to Wellingborough and it was the same sort of thing. There was a couple of hundred people there. And I was like, wow, like people have actually had enough of this. We had the whole thing. I think we got it massively wrong with the Mark Duggan stuff. People just rioted and looted and just did what they wanted to do and didn't really drive the message home the way that it needed to be drove home in regards to police brutality and police over-policing of certain demographics. It's hard for me to sit here and say that, okay, fine, yeah, people have woken up and yeah, we're going to get this done now, when I kind of feel like after the protests, everyone kind of just, oh, well, we protested and that was it. I feel that it was great. Both of the days were great. Both of the days had energy, had everybody talking. There was black, white, green, yellow, blue, green, whatever ethnicity, whatever religion, whatever sexual orientation, whatever you want to say, was all over. Everyone was there. Everyone was interacting with each other. People were asking each other questions. I heard an older white couple actually sit and ask a young black girl, what is it that I'm not getting? And the black girl sat with them for about 10 minutes and explained what was wrong, why it's wrong, what is happening, why this reaction has happened. And I think those are the sort of dialogues that we need to have. Those are the sort of things that people need to be open to having discussions with people. If people come to you and approach you and ask you questions, be prepared to answer those questions. I feel like we've got to a point where everyone's angry and everyone's upset and everyone's passionate, but we're not, we don't want to have the conversation that's going to help mend and fix this, because it's not down to us as black or mixed race people to fix every white person's opinion or every racist's opinion, because it's not just white people that are racist. There are other races that are racist as well. Regarding Black Lives Matter, regarding anything to do with inequality or systemic racism or anything to do with black people, it's not our job to go out and educate all racists. It's not our job, but we have to be able to answer those questions. If they come to us, I have people still to this day, my DMs on Instagram and Facebook is not non-ending of people that know me or know of me will ask me a question. What do you think of this? Why is it this way? Why is this way? They'll come to me with, I don't agree with diversity. I didn't agree with this. I didn't agree with that. And that's fine. They can have their opinion. But the fact that they're able to come to me and voice their opinion and say, this is why, I feel like that's the point of the protest. That's the point of us coming together as a community. That's the point of us doing these sorts of things. And I feel like we've lost some of that headway by not following up as much as we need to when it comes to these sorts of things. I think everybody needs to have an open dialogue with this, and we need to start coming together a bit more. It's all well and good, all of us doing it when stuff like this with George Floyd or stuff with Trayvon Martin or stuff with Mark Duggan or stuff with Christopher Older or the countless other black and brown men and women that have been killed in police custody or been killed through racism. We could go all the way back to Emmett Till being killed, or we could go all the way back to certain other young black boys or black girls being beaten or raped or whatever. We can go, there's an endless list. We know this. But what are we doing now, right now, this minute, all of us? What are we doing to make this better? And it's things like this that we're doing today, where we're sitting and we're having this these discussions, we're finding out what's going on. After this is over, if anybody wants to talk to me about what can I do to help, what can I do to do anything, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, Bebo, whatever it is, MySpace, I don't care. Find me, message me, talk to me. I'm here to talk to everybody. I'll also be putting up all of the pictures from the Wellingborough protest, all the pictures from the Northampton protest that I have. I'll be putting those up on Facebook. I'll get Anjona to put them on the NREC site as well, so you guys can see it. I see the thumbs up there. I do see the thumbs up. Hello. Yeah, I don't really have much else to say other than it was great talking to people. It was great to see the community, that there is a community out there of young and old, because I saw, and I'm sure you won't mind me saying, I saw Ivan Toney, who's a professional footballer, plays for Brentford now. I saw him and his dad at the Northampton protest. Like, that to me is like, it's generational. To see more than just the dad, or more than just the auntie, or more than just one of the kids, it's entire families that are coming out and supporting this. I saw sisters together, like that I know might generally not get along, but I saw them standing there together. I saw old friends rekindling relationships through it. It's all well and good. It's all coming together as a community when stuff goes wrong, but we need to stick together and build on that community now, because unless we start holding our local leaders accountable, unless we start holding our MPs accountable, unless we start holding our educators accountable, none of the stuff that we do or talk about is going to matter. I had the other day, there was a girl in school, she was talking about Black Lives Matter, and she was asking the teacher questions, and the teacher turned around and said, this isn't the time or place for it. In other words, she didn't know what to say, so she wanted to quieten the conversation down. And that is a problem. So we need to start holding our educators and holding our local officials accountable. And that's the only way things are going to change. Stay one as a community and also start holding people accountable. I'm going to stop talking now because everyone looks bored of me talking, and I'm going to hand back to Trey. Trey, shut me up.
Thanks, Will. I'm now going to hand over to Anjona and Charlene.
I think it's more Charlene than Anjona.
Thanks, Trey. Anjona, are you able to share the PowerPoint in a moment?
Sure.
Great. Hi guys, my name's Charlene Bent. I'm a fashion stylist and journalist. I've worked in the fashion industry for about 20 years and become a Northamptonshire resident in the last 2.5 years. It's a lovely county, and I'm having a great experience. Moved here with my husband and children, along with my sister and her children, which was a great experience to do it all together. However, in the time that I've been here, I really wanted to get more involved in the community and see if there are any opportunities that I could lend some support. And in light of all the Black Lives Matter protests and the great conversation that it raised during lockdown, I discovered Northamptonshire Rights and Equality Council and just felt really passionate about their message, everything they stood for, and wanted to be a part of it really, hence why I'm now one of the board members. But this is has a deeper meaning for me, and the main reason would be I have gone through the education system myself, both here, and I had the opportunity to study in the Caribbean for 3 years. So I have the experience of being taught from primary right up to half of my secondary education in the UK, and then had the rest of my secondary education in Jamaica. And what I found really interesting was my history that I was taught there was really more connected to who I am and where I come from. And I really got a strong sense of self, confidence about who I am, my history, my ancestors. And I just felt really empowered by that. However, when I had my own children and just watched their experiences through their education here from primary right up to secondary, I noticed there wasn't really, the education system seemed quite biased, and there wasn't much of a conversation or a platform or opportunity to discuss diversity within our local community, and also just the truth about our history and the truth about British history. And so for me, in terms of ways that we can make a difference within our own community, education is something that I'm very passionate about. And I feel that if you educate somebody, you empower them and give them the confidence to go on. So I just think that this is an area in particular that I'm really passionate about. And I think that's where a lot of rectifying some of historical challenges and issues we've had within the Black community, I think that in particular is an area that I think it starts from. So with the Northamptonshire Rights and Equality Council, we've come up with a 9-point plan to support the community in Wellingborough and look at ways that we can tackle some of the systematic issues that we experience, from racism within the workplace to the education system, stop and search, and a variety of problems that we regularly experience as Black people that really do need to be addressed. So even though George Floyd's death is tragic and it's awful, but it's really created, it's been such a powerful wave that's created a massive conversation globally, so that we can start addressing some of the issues within our local community as Black people, or that Black people are experiencing. So here's just a little presentation on some of the ways that we plan to address these issues. And Joanna, if you could just...
Yeah, I'm trying to.
So we initially had created a draft early June 2020, so just really at the peak of the conversation, really, when it was clearly something that needed to be tackled, and we had lots of discussions within the Northamptonshire Rights and Equality Council to just ensure that, as board members do, that we would create some sort of plan that would tackle these issues. So we had a consultation on the 14th, involvement with stakeholders and members, and then published it on the 22nd of June, which is available on our website. I'm just waiting. There we go. So yeah, and Joan is controlling the PowerPoint to wait for it to click through. But the 9-point plan addresses individuals, employers, and public bodies. We want people to take accountability. It's great having a conversation, but it needs to go that step further, and people need to address these issues that are so apparent.
Sorry.
That's okay. Calls for ring-fenced investment into the Black community and voluntary sector and groups challenging racial injustice, like some of the things that we do within our own Northamptonshire Rights and Equality Council. Specific recommendations for the police, schools, colleges and universities, health bodies and local councils. Like Will said, I don't think it's a Black problem, but I do think we have to be open and willing to have a conversation so that we can address the issues with some of the leaders within society that do have the control, and that can help to make the change that we would like to see. Calls for an independent review on handling of hate crime and incidents in the county. I myself have witnessed hate crime being reported at the police station with a Black woman who was saying that she had monkey nuts, which I was honestly gobsmacked that this was happening in 2020. And I don't think, I think it's apparent that racism is still here, but my experiences have been a little bit more systematic and not so candid. But it does happen, and it's disgraceful, and it needs to be stamped out. But the challenge is, when these incidents are being reported, what are the next steps? How are they actually being tackled? These are victims of racism, and what's actually being done to ensure that the message is getting across. It's not okay. This is not a diverse society. We're not showing a diverse community by allowing these incidents to occur. It's a crime, ultimately, so it should be punishable. Smart targets to reduce health inequalities for Black, Asian and other communities and staff. Disproportionate numbers of deaths amongst Black, Asian and other ethnic NHS and care sector workers from COVID-19 virus, which has brought about the whole issue of inequality again in health and social care into the spotlight, just like we have with Black women having more challenges with childbirth, and just being treated differently with their maternity experiences. I personally have experienced that myself. So I definitely think that these are some of the areas that need to be addressed. The vulnerability of Black, Asian and other ethnic communities to colourblind service provision. Providers are also encouraged to look to and share knowledge and experiences of countries of origin and global health and wellbeing practices. So with our 9-point plan, the objective was really to set targets to significantly reduce disproportionately stop and search to 0 by the end of 2021. That may seem ambitious, but nothing is impossible. If we don't tackle these issues and we don't approach it, and if anything, now's the best time because the conversation has been had and nobody really wants a spotlight on them. So it's definitely the best time to ensure that we enforce these this policing strategy. Ensuring that there are no racial disparities in the use of tasers, re-examining policing policies and practices in respect of drugs enforcement, suspend and investigate officers involved in any situation where there is an allegation of people suffering serious harm whilst being arrested or in police custody. Now, I personally don't know of any Black person within my community, and everyone within my direct connection is very successful and definitely contributing to society in a positive way. But I unfortunately don't know one Black man that has not been stopped and searched. I don't know anyone that doesn't have a story where they've been treated unfairly by the police, and that speaks volumes. Suspend and investigate any police officer who fails to intervene in circumstances where they see other officers engaging in unlawful or harmful practices. Again, which just confirms my point. And then community audit. All local authorities and public bodies, including colleges and universities, undertake a community audit of all monuments, just like we saw in Bristol with taking down any kind of statue that was just felt to be racist and connected to slavery. So public works of art, names of buildings, rooms and street, we should not be paying tribute or homage to anything that is racist within our society, because what message is that sending to our community? What message is that sending to our children? And just street names that may be linked to slavery, history of colonialism, British Empire, having that honest conversation about where we come from. And like I said, about having, and it being disproportionate with my education here and the short time that I spent in the Caribbean, and how honest it was in comparison to how disproportionate it was here. And providing full disclosure history with a view to either removing them or replacing them with positive, diverse images or works of art, or more contemporary names, features which reflect our values of equality, diversity, and racial justice. Ultimately, that's the whole purpose of this movement, is for justice. Re-examining the curriculum, both formal and informal, decolonizing, removing racist assumptions around the production of knowledge and the content of the curriculum, studying the contribution of Black and ethnic communities in the UK. This goes back centuries, and I think it's a vital part of our history, which is often skipped in primary education and secondary education. And just like Veterans Day, and perhaps paying tribute to all of the Black soldiers that were on the front line and supported this country. My parents coming over in Windrush, and again, rebuilding this country after World War II. We are a huge part of Britain being who and where it is today. And it's just time that we got our dues. It's time that we were acknowledged and respected in the community, in education. And these are some of the areas that we would definitely like to see tackled. So acknowledge that historic racism underpins slavery, colonialism and British Empire, and how these influence current attitudes to what being British means in today's world. This also comes from things like forms that don't include for example, I've experienced situations where I've had to complete a form and it's not given me the option to select Black British. So after contributing over centuries historically, and also my parents coming over in Windrush, being born here, British citizen, having children here, I'm still not considered Black British in some circumstances. We just really want to be treated equal. We want to feel that it's all fair. So Action for Wellingborough, a long-standing history of collaboration between BAME communities, a time for change. So just really move to unity. COVID and the new normal that we're experiencing now, other resources for change, new services and new investment. And this is about the change that we really just want to see, and we would like to be a part of it and welcome anybody that would like to support us in this change.
Thank you so much, Charlene.
Thank you. Thanks, guys. Thanks for listening.
So, at this point in time, it's really looking back on what we've heard, both from Trey, from Will, from Charlene, and we are at this specific point in time where actually, because of what has happened over a long period of time and the shorter period of time over the summer, there is an opportunity now to be more specific about our action. As Will has stated, you know, kind of, it isn't just about the protest, it is about what happens after that. And there is an opportunity now for us to get a kind of unified voice, particularly at a point in time. There's a lot of change in the area. So local government is changing. There's a lot of change because of the COVID situation. People are having to do things differently because of the COVID situation. People are having to do things differently because of the changes in local authorities and other structures within the community. So this is the point in time where if there are key demands specifically for Wellingborough, then we should be having some consensus over what that actually is, and then trying to create a discussion, debate and plan about how to achieve that change that we want. So the 9-point plan that Northamptonshire Rights and Equality Council put together was a county-wide plan, and some of the parts of it will have more relevance and resonance in Wellingborough than some other parts of the plan. And what I'm really after, and also there may be things that are not in that plan that actually are a key issue for getting racial justice in Wellingborough. And actually, so this is a point in time where actually we should be opening up for discussion, and just to see if anyone has got any clear sense of what out of the 9-point plan or what isn't in the 9-point plan needs to be on the agenda to achieve racial justice and change within Wellingborough. So I'm just going to kind of opening out. People can use the kind of put up the hand, or they can use the little blue hand in the participants bit to indicate and maybe make a contribution on that. I know we've got some very vocal people from Wellingborough in the audience, and I'm looking forward to hearing what they have to say in terms of this, because it's a key agenda, and it's a key agenda that we're looking for people's contributions in. So who's first? Muna?
I don't mind. I was trying to look for the hand to click. Hello, everybody. I'm sorry about the background again. I'll have to just apologize. Please ignore that. Thank you so much for inviting me. Trey, well done. Charlene, and also Will, very powerfully spoken, actually. I mean, I just wanted to add, you know, what Jonah just said and what's been basically been saying. So just echoing a little bit around that. Is basically how to action this, because obviously it's been a long time coming. It's you know, as Trey put it there, you know, the abuse of racism through blackness, through, you know, education or anything like that. How are we going to move forward? And I would like to see some sort of action, and how, you know, how we could come into terms of this and actually action it. Because we talk about race, racist behaviors and racial diversity as a defined decision, but with, you know, with a beginning and an end. But the truth of it is, that's when we talk about it, it's race, and it's an ongoing topic that will never leave us. So I would really would love to hear how we could move forward and how we can action it. And I'm 100% behind you guys, and with you guys. So, you know, that's why I wanted to input into this. Thank you.
So thank you for that, Muna. And I mean, it's really great that we have a local councillor here expressing that opinion. I know we've got other local councillors and past councillors who also, I know, will have opinions about this, and also people who aren't councillors who are vocal and could have, you know, could have the things about it. I mean, Muna was talking about how do we action this and how do we go forward, and part of that is to agree the key the key issues that we want change on. Later on in the meeting, Fatima was talking about another joint piece of work between Support Northamptonshire and Northamptonshire Rights and Equality Council, where we really do believe that we have got in place the investment for the strategy in getting that change in the opinion of stakeholders and policymakers and the public. So there are opportunities here. Now, someone called Anjana Roy has put up their hand, and there are 6 of me. So whoever it is, put up your hand, please do come out and speak.
Hello, I think it was me. I didn't know I changed my name, mind you. So I hope you can hear. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, we can hear you. Do you want to tell us your name and I'll rename you?
Okay, it's Christine Collymore.
Oh, hi, Christine.
Hiya. Yeah, my question is, because been around in the kind of community involvement for a number of years now, and still seeing that we're still having to deal with the same issues. In putting together a 9-point plan, did certain people agree to these particular points that were raised? Because for me, it's the whole thing about people being accountable and who we need to go back to. So even if, because we know we can't do it on our own, we have to do it as a collective. And really, I think it's not a question of just pinning certain action on certain people. I think we all have to do that. But if, say, senior leaders, councillors, whatever, have actually agreed to the 9-point plan, part of the action for me is about how do we actually monitor exactly what's going on and having that contact with those same people. Because I'm in education at the moment, having been in social care, and some of the issues, obviously with COVID and everything else, kind of just strengthens that whole remit for me about how hospitals, for instance, the directors and whatever, have they taken all this on board? In terms of the university, have they, the chancellor, the vice chancellor, have they agreed to the 9-point plan? Because I know that I can probably try and input or try at least raise questions, and at least if we know we've got certain people in certain places, we can then come together with how we're actually progressing.
I think, Christine, have you finished, Christine?
Yes, I have. Sorry, yeah, I went on a bit long.
Okay, no, that's fine. But just to give you go back over a bit of the background, but it was Northamptonshire Rights and Equality Council who came up with an initial draft. At that point in time, it was a 10-point plan, believe it or not. And we tried to do some kind of, we circulated it to our membership, stakeholders that we knew were interested. And we had a Zoom meeting similar to this, where we had not only people who were members, but people who weren't members, people who were just interested, who came together and gave their views about what should be in it and how it should be phrased. And we tried to take that on board, and then we released it. In terms of who has adopted it now, what I would say was, given that it was released by the Northampton REC at the end of June, there are very few organisations that have actually, you know, literally signed on the dotted line and said, yes, this is what something we will take on board. This is something that we will look at. This is something we will respond to. To date, we have had, which I think is very welcome, a response from the police, a senior officer, Superintendent Elliot Foskett, acknowledging that the 9-point plan exists and committing to give a written response. Now, this is progress. This has not happened before. We do know that in some local authorities, this is being discussed in various kinds of fora. We're encouraging other people in local authorities or educational institutions to do that. But also, the 9-point plan is a tool. So, for instance, I know there was a group of people this morning, and it wasn't in Wellingborough, it's in Northampton, met with the Chief Executive of Northampton General Hospital. And they did take with them that particular section on health to that meeting with the Chief Executive of Northampton General Hospital to see what could be achieved from that. And I don't know what the outcome of that, but actually it is a tool. It is a tool because, as you rightly said, Christine, you know, kind of, you know, united we stand, divided we fall. If there is a document that says things that we can build on, or we can add to, or even if people in Wellingborough said, well, you know what, that part of the national 9-point plan, that's not relevant for Wellingborough. That's also completely sound, but it is about kind of trying to agree on message. And I think what's really welcome is what you are saying in terms of your position within education locally, and the potential of you as an individual, and if you need any additional support for you to take this document back into your institution, and also, you know, kind of use that as a basis on which to go forward. So I think that, again, an even more lengthy response to your kind of query on that. But again, I'm really grateful that you've spoken out, and particularly because, Christine, you're from Wellingborough, and we need people from Wellingborough to be speaking out in this meeting. Protima?
Thanks, Angela. And thanks, Trey, Will, and Charlene. That's really useful backdrop to all of this. In terms of the 9-point plan, I was kind of involved in the consultation kind of exercise. And what I really welcomed is that there was a real sense from the protests and the movements and everything that happened over the summer, that it's really important in any positions that we hold, that there's something that people can feel they can do something about. I think Will was saying about the conversations that were taking place. It wasn't just a protest. People were saying, what can we do? So having been around a long time and all the rest of it, what I like about the 9-point plan is that it covers all the areas that we need to tackle. So it doesn't leave anything out. So you couldn't argue that there are health inequalities or policing issues that have to be tackled, etc. I think that there's what's different this time is that it's far more, given the global and the national issues around Black Lives Matters, people are taking it that much more seriously. So it's a real wake-up call this time, in a way that previously it's been a bit of kind of, you know, trial and error, and we have a few champions in different institutions and all the rest of it. So, for example, in the plan around policing, you know, how many times have we all heard about disproportionate, stop and search issues? And even as of like about 3 months ago, I was in a meeting with the police where they were saying, yeah, but Northamptonshire is not as bad as London, you know? But actually, that level of stop and search and disproportionate impact is not acceptable. So for the 9-point plan to say 0 by 2021, I think is actually has gone further than perhaps we've done ever, you know? That is not acceptable because it's not acceptable. So I think what I think for Wellingborough, I think it's really important whether NREC leads it and sets something up, but each one of us in our respective different areas of work. You know, Christine said about education. I know we've got arts people in the audience, etc. I think if we all took leads on each area, there's something to be said as a start, really. And a lot of it is about going to people who in positions of power and being clear what the actions need to be, you know? So, and I think the 9-point plan gives, like you said, Anjana, you can take it to, you know, the health authority, you can take it to the police, you can take it, you know, and work with them on developing a real clear actions, really clear targets around it as well. So, you know, I've certainly begun to use it as a tool, as Anjana says. So, but I think there's something we need to set up together to know that each of those areas somebody's leading on and something's being done about it. Because given the changes around the local authority, especially, it's really important that we parallel this alongside that development.
Really good, Fatima. Just on the basis that I haven't got any other hands up, I just want to, I don't want to put someone on the spot, but I do want to, sorry, Mr. Dathani, you want to speak?
Not by, you got to unmute yourself.
Oh, yeah. See, I was trying to get myself unmuted. Yeah. I think what we observed that during Brexit, you know, when the Brexit and things were going on, there was an increase of hate crime in the whole of UK. And we felt that in Wellingborough as well, you know. We've been through the hate crime ourselves all these years. It's still there. But last time when we were talking about the 9-point plan, and when we were also discussing the Black Lives Matter, somebody mentioned that the politicians' comments makes it worse most of the time. The politicians in UK, including the Prime Minister himself, their comments sometimes in the past, and you know, everybody knows Donald Trump's comments running every day, you know, even in the last debate he had with Biden. You know, those comments come into the community, and it raises the hate again and again. I think we got this very good plan, the 9-point plan, and I believe that the way we can the way we can solve it is by inviting the local councillors, all of them, and keep talking to them with dialogue and talk to the headmasters, teachers. Once we have done locally, say in Wellingborough, we can increase it into Northampton and other towns and keep talking to the councillors, because see their comments. I don't think we have contacted, have we contacted the local MP with our 9-point plan? Have we sent him one? Because their comments are creating a lot of hate in the whole country at the moment. You know, we can feel it, you know, the way they speak, the way they comment, the way they say things, you know, you can literally feel it in your heart that, you know, this guy is against you, you know. That's the feeling I have, you know. So, you know, and thanks for the comments.
Thank you, Vinod. That was really, really, really helpful. And I think you're completely right. And I think it's exacerbated in Northamptonshire because for so many years we haven't had any local elections. So actually, and from a personal perspective, I don't even know whether we'll have any elections this coming May.
No.
So, you know, kind of, we need to work together to get the youth to work together on this. I mean, one particular success story, I would say, in this very short period of time, is in relation to, we've got that one thing in the 9-point plan about a dedicated resource for Black community organisations and initiatives campaigning for racial justice. I'm really pleased to say that we've had a really productive conversation over the last couple of weeks with, in particular, Northamptonshire Community Foundation, who had a really deep delve into their equality, diversity and inclusion strategies, but also they've adopted the UN Sustainable Goals and tried, what we've put to them is also the need to try and link those with the 9-point plan. And as an organisation, what they're trying to do is to try and take the politics out of it on the basis that this is not political, this is the UN. I mean, and you know, it's as far as I'm concerned, a strong strategy and links, particularly with that one particular thing on the 9-point plan about ring fencing investment into Black voluntary organisations and groups that are making part of their core work campaigning for racial justice. Just wondering if we've got any more contributions. Oh, Jenny, go for it.
So, can everybody hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, that's grand. So my name's Jenny Campbell from Inspiration Community Radio in Northampton. First and foremost, I'd like to commend REC for producing this document and definitely the presentations that have taken place so far. I'd have to echo what Christine was saying in terms of the actions. So that's the bit of the plan that I'm mostly interested in. And I'll give you a prime example in terms of a definitive action. So for me, I'd like to see the actions that then feed in. So it kind of is from the 9-point plan, but you can definitively see the action that feeds back in. So it kind of goes two ways, if that makes sense. So when you've mentioned about, oh, before I go on, and Jonah, did you contact any of the MPs in terms of this plan?
In terms of the 9-point plan, we didn't directly contact very many people, but it did get published in quite a long article in the Evening Telegraph and also in the Chronicle and Echo.
Would I be right in saying then that you haven't had a response from any of the 7 MPs in Northamptonshire?
We haven't directly had any response from any of the 7 MPs, and if people want me to send it to them, if that's something that you think we should do, then I'm quite happy to do that.
No, I mean, it's entirely up to yourselves. I'm just answering a question. So just going back to the point, sorry, I digress, but I'll come back. one of the points that you made, and that was the stop and search, as in zero balance 2021. And Jonah, please, sorry, what do you mean by zero by 2021? Because what I think, based on your response, then my next question to you would be, is that being realistic?
Just to say, it is about zero disproportionality. So at the moment, you are about 6 to 9 times more likely to be stopped if you're African or Caribbean looking male than if you're their white male counterparts.
Okay.
I think one of the issues, Jenny, and we've worked a long time over stop and search, is particularly with Northamptonshire Police. There has been a consistent refusal over many, many years, despite demands to adopt any kind of target at all.
Yeah, so let me just finish, in Jonah, if that's okay, or else I'm going to forget my point. So what I was saying is that in terms of the definitive target that you've set there, so far, which goes back to what you just said, what has been put in place, and that is the only statutory organisation that has actually put something in place, where they've got this working group, and they have been, you know, communicating with the community for X amount of years. However, they have been unsuccessful for X amount of years, and that surprises me, but they have. And I think we need to get to a stage whereby they can no longer find their way out of something that's tabled. It needs to be a definitive yes or no, because unfortunately, my contact with the police, irrespective of what question you ask them, and you're a prime example, and Jonah, they seem to have a response that for everything, and it's not really the response that we're looking for. The only thing that I would say about that is the only statutory organisation. So I feel that because I think since the Black Lives Matter, as in the marches all over the country and the world, what people are crying out for, and that is what's next, what's actually happening, what actions have been put in place. And I think when we're talking about Northamptonshire, I think we need to be getting to a stage in terms of replicating what we currently have in place with Northampton Police, because at least we're around a table and we can ask those questions. We do have those dialogues, and we can challenge those that are in senior positions. Unfortunately, we don't have that. Correct me if I'm wrong. We don't have that when we're talking education. Although we've said something about the health, the exec, she's taken it, but what she's done with it, never know. So and then can't forget the other agencies, as in housing or anything like that. But even if we just look at two, education and health, for me, a definitive action would be to be replicating what we currently have in place when we're talking Northampton Police, as in that round the table, because then we definitively know that that has come from the Black Lives Matter, and it's come from the REC's 9-point action plan. At this moment in time, I think this Zoom call is fantastic, and I think that it's fantastic also that it's that Wellingborough leading on it, because I would say that a lot of stuff comes out of Northampton and then maybe the other towns. So I think it's good that Wellingborough are leading on it, but because you have specifically said that this is a county-wide action plan, I personally would like to see a replication of what we're doing with the police, because there's a lot of problems going on in education, especially when you're talking BAME children. But if you was to ask me, name me 5 problems, Jenny, I couldn't ask you. If you was to ask me, tell me about stop and search, I could go on, because there's just been so much dialogue going on. And that's all I'd like to say.
Thank you, Jenny. I've got Isabel indicating.
Yeah, I can only speak as a class teacher in the Victoria Ward in Wellingborough. I've got a lot of black children in my class, and when she's saying about the problems that we've got, I wouldn't say, because we have all our equal rights policies and things, what the children in my classroom are saying to me since the Black Lives Matter, because a few of them have been on a process with their families, is they would like to see Black representation of people in the history. We've got Black History Month at the moment, but it's just, that's like a token gesture. We'll do it for a month, we'll talk about Black people in history, and then it's not again for the whole another year again, if that. So what would be nice to see is, I was on a Zoom call last week on here with Sylvia Eskin, who used to be a teacher, and she compiled a list of British Black historical characters and people that have done some things. And she had a really good presentation on Claudia Jones that introduced the Notting Hill Carnival. And it was good. And when I mentioned it to my children, they really enjoyed that. So what would be nice is to see some kind of proper research and some proper lesson plans built around, you know, people that did make our history and the contributions that Black people that came from the Windrush and proper, so they can see themselves. You know, that is the problem. They're taught by white women, and the Black lads would love to see some Black heroes that can say, yeah, that's where we've come from. That looks like my granddad, that looks like my dad. And that would be nice. So maybe that would be a small step that we could see, and then you could actually see that being implemented, and it would be measurable that it was happening in all the schools in Wellingborough, not just, you know, in my one classroom at the moment.
Actually, Isabel, that's a really good point. And that goes back to what I was saying in terms of a small step. And something like that, we did, well, we've always done something on Inspiration Radio, whereby we listed 12 Black individuals that had made a difference in society. And when the young people were shown, they probably were able to identify 2. But by the end of doing, like you said, research, they had to do some radio stuff around it as well. Next time round, or definitely by the end of October, they then knew those 12 individuals. So instead of it's a classroom, they're actually learning why they're actually doing something. And I think just based on you sharing that, and then I think it was, what's his name, Will, that said about the white lady and the young Black girls. These are like the small things, and these are the small things that are coming directly from the community, and it's being able to build on those, but then the strategic side is already in there. For me, it's hearing more about the not necessarily the young voices, but the voices that you don't hear about, and the stories like the one that you've just given. Thank you.
I'll have Charlene indicated to speak.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Great, that's a great point, Isabel and Jenny, and that's definitely why I said education is something that I'm very passionate about, because I think this is definitely where it starts from, and how we can start to create a level of change that we would like to see. But I'm also conscious that schools are already inundated with the level of work that they have to deliver. So it's something that we personally, as the NREC, have to create or work with organisations to supply this kind of content. In the past, I've worked on things like this when I lived in London, to create a plan for Black History Month every year for my daughter's school and other schools within the community, and it's something that they've continued. So it was a very basic plan. Again, it was just highlighting contributors within the community. So this is something Androna and I have spoken about, and that I've said I'd like to put in place. But like I said, I've only been a part of the NREC for a short time. I'm very passionate about it, and that's something I'm definitely going to see through and ensure that is available within our local community, because it's basic. And I think if you supply it to schools on a plate, it's really hard for them not to deliver. But if we expect them to do the work, they just won't have the time. So starting with children being able to see themselves and how their ancestors have contributed to the society and the world that we live in today, such as Notting Hill Carnival For my children, when we were in London, something like that's really important and something to be celebrated. And also, the more you see yourself, the more confidence and the more powerful you feel as an individual, rather than feeling like a minority. And I actually hate that term, because Black people are not a minority. We just happen to be, there are fewer of us in numbers in this country, but we're not a minority on the planet. So it's important that the education system reflects that, and that's why that's something I'd like to see and follow through with Anjona.
You made a valid point there, Charlene, because I know for a fact teachers, they do have a lot on their plate. There's no if or but about it. However, teachers follow whatever the government tell them to do. So when pupils are telling them, why do I have to do this subject? They will say, it's not me, it's the government. So when I said about the MPs, I've just thought about this off the top of my head. It's not necessarily about us going to schools, because I just think that's a dead wall, you know, in terms of schools. I think it needs to be at government level, whereby it's compulsory, and to make it, and because we're in this stage whereby everything's being done online, if they could receive something in a format whereby it's not going to consist of loads of work, they don't have to do loads of reading. If it's just a case of pressing a button, then they'll probably be more inclined. And maybe not all children want to watch it, but maybe it can be selective, as in children can decide whether or not they choose to watch it or listen to it.
You're absolutely right, Jenny. And I actually did a test run with my son's school, which is in the area, and I've had crickets. So I know that approaching the school is not the way to go. It's definitely through a more senior governing body and local MPs that you're going to get the response that we would like to see.
Sorry, can I just jump in quickly? Off of talking to the Black curriculum and a few other people that are trying to implement some kind of a better version of history and a more conclusive version of history and a more well-rounded version of history, British history, and especially which obtains to Black history within Britain. The problem that you're going to have, and I found that has been had so far, is that it's all well and good having the criteria and having it there, but when the teacher that's supposed to actually pass out this information and give this information hasn't got a clue themselves, it's very, very difficult to be able to go, well, here's part of a curriculum, here's all the information, go and relay that back to the kids. But then when the kids are asking questions, they don't actually know the answers themselves. It's extremely hard for you to do that. So it has to be for the time being, I believe, where you have guest speakers go in and put together something, because the teachers at those schools and teachers around the country, if you're not vested or interested in Black history yourself, it's like me asking a history teacher to teach PPE. They're not going to know. They're not going to know. They're not going to know the ins and outs. They're not going to be able to answer the questions that need to be answered. So that's for me. Sorry, I know that I'm just jumping into a conversation, but just from listening, from what I'm hearing, that's the issue that we're going to have. Is going, well, here's a curriculum. Here's what we think should go forward. The reason you've probably heard cricket, Charlene, is because they don't know themselves what it is that they're going to be saying to the kids.
I completely agree with you in terms of diversity training, because teachers don't have diversity training. That's not a part of what they need to know in order to be a teacher. However, I've had different responses according to where I've lived. In London, I had a much more positive and open response compared to the response I had whilst living in Northamptonshire. So I do think that is a part of it. To be honest with you, I also think that they don't want to be bothered to have to approach it or deal with it. So that's why I think if it's
100%.
Yeah, that's why I think if we go to a more senior level and also create something that doesn't require you to necessarily have a lot of diversity training, but it's still fun, because if we're starting at primary level, you can make things fun and children still learn more about who they are and where they come from, and that's what I would like to see. And then as time goes on, we can develop it, but we have to take small steps.
But there's sorry, can I just jump in? Yeah, there's there's already opportunity in the national curriculum to do that. I mean, Mary Seacole got herself on the curriculum because we had to choose somebody that was non-white in order to talk about nurses. I mean, I wouldn't have said that when I started teaching about Florence Nightingale. I could have answered millions of questions about it, but as a primary school teacher, and you've taught it for year after year after year, you learn about it. I know much more about Mary Seacole than I would have done. I didn't even know about her until I started teaching, and then I had to teach her. But we now have like biography in a bag, which is where you have to find somebody from Britain and then build a whole biography, and the children have to do a lot of research. So there already is those opportunities. But I think, like you say, if we made a lesson plan and had content in there for teachers to read through, they would do it. What they probably don't want to do is Google it and research it themselves. But it was only because I'd listened to a podcast about Claudia prior to this thing on Thursday, and then she came up again, obviously because the Nottingham Carnival was cancelled. There was quite a lot of things about her, but that I know more about Claudia. I mean, I'd never heard of Claudia. I didn't know about the magazine that she'd produced for the area that she lived in. I didn't know about is it Kelso that was murdered, that had caused the riot, that had caused her to bring together the Notting Hill Carnival. So there's all sorts of things that I didn't know about then. And I just think that if it was something that we'd all put together, people would do it, and then once it's there, it would be used again and again and again, and then it would just become like Florence Nightingale, that it would be somebody we knew about. But I bet there isn't many people that know lots of facts about Florence, but we know the name because we teach it when we're in primary school all the time. So that's what we need to do, to ingrain it into the system now while they're young. So sorry.
So we've got in the chat Paul saying that some of these resources already exist in Northamptonshire. Certainly there are lesson plans in relation to Walter Tull. Also, there was quite an extensive amount of lesson plan work that used to exist on the Northamptonshire Black History Association website. That website currently is down, and I'm working with the Northamptonshire Black History Association to try and get that back up. So I think there are opportunities. There's also
sorry, Angela, just to cut you off there, this is my point. Why is a lot of this, like with Northampton, that's Northampton history. That's not just Black history. That's Northampton history. This thing where we separate and we categorize and box off different things is half of the problem. Like if we put out things that it's just, look, this is what it is. This is, for example, Walter Tull. He's a Northampton historical figure. He's not just a Black historical figure. He's a Northampton historical figure. Those are the reasons why people are finding this information or looking for this information, because it's just being labelled as, well, this is the Black history. If you want to read it, go and read it. If you don't, well, it's there. That's the issue. Sorry, I keep butting in. I'm going to shut up and go away now.
It's just, Will, that we're running out of time. And what I'm saying is we are going to take on board everything that people have contributed to the discussion in here. We're going to try and work up something that is another more specific document relating specifically to Wellingborough. If you are interested in that, or if you mention this to somebody else tomorrow or the next day and they are interested in that, please do get in touch with us so we can do more on this. I'm cognizant of the issues that people have raised, particularly from Jenny and Mona, about the need for action. And Northamptonshire Rights and Equality Council, with support to Northamptonshire, will be embarking on a series of training sessions, which is about strategic messaging and trying to change public opinion. We're really hoping that this a document that's specific to Wellingborough can really help to move that forward. So with no further ado, I'm going to well, one more thing, just to say that if you've enjoyed tonight, next week Northamptonshire Rights and Equality Council have another Zoom event on the use of stock search and the use of tasers, and we'll be emailing out to everybody if you'd like to participate in that as well. At this stage, I'm just going to hand over to Fatima, who's from Support Northamptonshire, who's helped support the development of this particular event.
Thanks, Angela. And thanks everyone for your participation and the discussion. This is exactly kind of where we needed to take this, and we're not going to crack this obviously in an hour and a half. Can I just thank Trey for his support and Will? Really appreciate that kind of, you know, real insight into exactly what had gone on and the kind of Northamptonshire perspectives around that. Charlene, thanks for your kind of input, because I think that bringing that plan alive and meaningful was really useful. I think we're beginning to think about some of those actions already. I know, and Jenny's right, the police have done a lot, so let's keep that going, and there's some good leadership there, you know, that we need to kind of foster and work with. Education, Charlene's almost championing that already. The politicians, I think Angela will send out stuff anyway, but I think that's a good point. We need to kind of get politicians and MPs together. The Unitary Council arrangements present another opportunity. So the more geared up we are, the better we can kind of influence there as well. And Angela and we're all working quite closely with Made with Many. And so I think around arts and culture, there's real opportunities for Wellingborough to kind of really do some cutting edge stuff, hopefully as well. So like Angela says, please get in touch. We want to keep this alive and active, and things need to happen really as a result of this event, but also everything else that's going on in the county around Black Lives Matters. So many thanks, and please participate in the event that Angela has said as well. That's really important. Thank you very much. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye now.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.